What's up, guys? Hope you're having a good day. If you've been a part of my community for a while, you'll know that I'm always looking for ways to improve, and one of the ways that I do this is by regularly going over my results, going over past performance, to try and identify any trends which may be costing me money, or any types of bets that I seem to perform particularly well on. And by doing this over a period of time, I hope to make lots of gradual improvements, and over the long term obviously become more and more profitable. Now, it's a slow process because when you're analysing results, you need a decent sample size of results to build up for you to analyse, which obviously takes time. And then once you've implemented changes, you need another period of time to pass where you can kind of see if those changes that you made any positive impact. And what I really like to do is go over past results, past performance, and try and identify types of bets which seem to be costing me money more often than not. Certain types of bets which tend to lose more often than other types of bets. And then I like to look at certain types of bets that I perform really well on. And then the whole process of improving is placing less of the bets, or completely eliminating the bets that I don't have a particularly high win rate on, that I don't perform particularly well on, and double down and place more of the types of bets that I do perform well on and do produce a good profit. And a really good example of this process in effect is our pre-fight betting performance over the last year. So I'm going to make a separate video about this where I talk in more detail about the changes that I've made. But as you can see on this profitability chart, there's three very different stages of performance here. You have these huge uptrends here, where we're performing extremely well. Then we kind of plateau here and we break around and go sideways for literally a year. And then you can see a clear turning point in this section where in the last year, again, we don't have the kind of steep explosive profits that we have here, but a nice steady consistent uptrend. And if we take the last year's performance and we turn it into its own mini graph, and we bring that into Photoshop, you can see a really nice steady consistent uptrend there. And that's our betting results on pre-fight bets over the last year, which is clearly very, very different from this. And how we got to this point was me basically reaching a point where I built up a decent enough sample size of bets to realize that I was doing something wrong, like something wasn't working. And so I always say, people underrate how amazing it is on betting if you can float around break even, because if we're being realistic, right, most people that bet on sports get destroyed. If you could float around break even, you could just make a few tweaks and then push yourself into profitability. So whenever I see a break even period, I'm like, okay, I need to analyze why I'm breaking even, what kind of bets are consistently costing me money, remove them, double down on what's working well. And you can see the effect here. So over this year period where we were just going sideways, I literally went over all our bets during that time, eliminated certain types of bets that I wasn't performing well on, placed more of the kind of bets I do perform well on. You can see the outcome here, right? Great consistent uptrend. This is brilliant. And if we keep this up, pre-fight betting is gonna become an absolute money train for us, and I'll obviously talk about that in another video. But I'm bringing this up because I also regularly do this type of analysis on football betting, and I talk about it with the guys in the football betting group. And recently in the football betting Discord, it's become something that a few people have brought up, where we just don't seem to really lose very often on Saturdays. It's one of those things where it felt like we make a profit pretty much every Saturday betting football, but it's one of those things where you can never really be sure if it's true until you delve into the results and the past performance, because sometimes when I'm kind of coming up with ideas for areas to improve and things to analyze, whether it's live bet in the UFC, pre-fight bet in the UFC, or live bet in football, I'll have an idea of an area that I can improve, and then once I dig into the results and do the analysis, it turns out that my initial thoughts were just completely wrong, and there was nothing to it. The actual cold hard results didn't back up my theory. So this was an interesting one to explore, and it turns out that we do actually perform extremely well on Saturdays. So I started to write this really long post for the football betting group, explaining all the stuff that I'd basically discovered, and then I thought, this is just getting really long-winded. It's going to be very hard for me to explain the impact that this discovery could have on future performance, and it would be just way better to show you what I've done so you can see it firsthand, see the results yourself, and then I can explain to you the impact that this could have on our level of profitability, what we might be able to do moving forward. So first of all, for those of you that don't know very much about football, you may not understand the significance of Saturday, right? So best way I can describe it is, most of you watching this will be in my live betting my UFC live betting group. So with UFC live betting, you know how there are certain live betting strategies we have that are extremely effective. We know we're going to win certain types of bets 75 to 80% of the time. Our win rate is absolutely huge on them. But then we know there are other live betting strategies in the UFC, perhaps ones where we bet risky underdogs, for example, where we know we're not going to hit as high of a win rate. We know that we're likely to get more swings and variance from those types of bets. They're a profitable strategy, but they're not as big of a cash cow as some other strategies that we have. And in UFC live betting, we get 12 to 14 UFC fights to bet every week. And a big part of our success, a big part of our profitability comes down to the kind of matchups that we have to bet. If you get a UFC event on a Saturday with 12 fights on it, and 10 of them are very one-sided, or 10 of them end very quickly, you guys know we're not really going to be able to do very well, because then we've only got 2 maybe competitive fights to pick bets from. And if those fights aren't, they don't play out in a way which enables us to, utilize our very, very highly profitable strategies in live betting, those specific ones that hit at a high win rate, then it's a lot less likely that we'll be profitable on certain UFC events. Whereas if we have a 12 fight UFC card and 10 of the fights on the 12 fight card are competitive, and 6 of the fights on the card have scenarios and dynamics within them that enable us to place our categories of live bets that hit at a really high percentage, then naturally that type of UFC event is much more likely to produce a profit for us. So we know that the kind of fights we get to bet every week have a big impact on our profitability, and if we get a few weeks of bad UFC events, it becomes, or not necessarily bad UFC events, but bad UFC events for our style of betting, it becomes a lot harder to make money. And the same is true for football. Certain leagues around the world are easier to make money on than others. Certain styles of football, certain teams, certain countries, all different kinds of football around the world has different difficulty levels when it comes to making money, to the extent that there are certain betting strategies I have that on some leagues around the world are an absolute money train. I've got a win rate on certain types of bets in certain leagues in the world of a win rate of 80%, which is far higher than anything we hit on UFC live betting. Some of the types of bets I place on some leagues in football are my best performing bets out of anything that I do. But I could place the exact same type of bet on a different league and have a win rate as low as like 35 to 40%, because the styles of football are so different all across the world. And so it took me a long time to learn that. I've spoken about that a lot in detail in other videos, but the point I'm trying to make in all of this is Saturdays are very unique with football, because on Saturdays we literally get hundreds of football matches taking place from all over the world. So what this means is we have a huge sample size of bets across all leagues in the world to cherry pick winning bets from. So if you think about it, right, say a UFC event had 200 fights on the card, right, and they were all taking place. Say you had 200 fights taking place on a card, and you had, a new 20 fights start every 30 minutes. Well, at the start of every 30 minutes, you could, based on your pre-fight research, scan through all the matchups about to start and prioritize watching the ones which you think have the biggest potential for, producing a good live betting opportunity. And you could not waste your time with all those fights that you know are going to be one-sided, that you know are going to end very quickly, that you know are going to be very difficult for live betting, and you could zero in on those ones which probably going to help, probably going to be pretty good for making money. That's what Saturdays on football are, because you have hundreds of matches that start very early in the morning. They go till very late at night. You can literally bet 20 hours non-stop on football if you want. Every hour new games are starting. And what you can do on a Saturday is be really, really selective and cherry pick watching games and betting games that are very, very likely to yield a profit. And that's different to other days in the week where, for example, on a Monday night, you might only have 20, 30 games to bet. Tuesday night, 20, 30 games. And so you have a much smaller sample size of football matches to bet. And what that means is you have to kind of lower your standards. So remember earlier on when I gave the example of, why is this gone blurry? Earlier on, sorry guys, let's just sort this out. There we go. Earlier on when I gave the example of, certain types or certain betting strategies in UFC live betting that we know don't have as high of a win rate. Well, a lot of the time we've had to place bets like that because we've had to lower our standards, right? We'd probably do a lot better if we just stuck to only betting the strategies which we know are absolutely top tier that hit 75 to 80% of the time. But the problem is sometimes you might have to wait 3, 4, 5 weeks for a bet that strong to come around, right? You just don't have enough fights, a big enough sample size for those bets that we win a really high percentage of to be, to present themselves. Well, in football, because there's hundreds of football matches taking place on a Saturday, you could pretty much guarantee that if you just sit there and you watch 20 hours of football on a Saturday, you're going to get 2 or 3 games, 2 or 3 betting spots, which are ultra, ultra, ultra strong positions, which tick all the boxes and hit the absolute top tier criteria for being a super strong position. And that's very different from other days in the week where, like I say, you might only get 20, 30 games to bet, and then you have to kind of lower your standards and you can't take as strong positions because you just might not get the games midweek that play out in a certain way that enable you to execute those strategies that come with a really high win rate. And so betting on Saturdays is very, very different from betting on other days of the week. And so, like I say, in the football Discord, over the last few weeks, a few people, like Tobias has said it, a few other people have been saying, like, damn, we just never lose on Saturdays. So as we've got towards the end of this month, this is a concept that I really wanted to explore. So what I did was go back over our performance from every Saturday this year. So I went back through the database, used the calendar to mark out, every single Saturday, since the beginning of the year, and I worked out our profit and loss on every single Saturday. Now, the reason why I didn't go any further back than January 2023 is obviously the 2 months before that was the World Cup. November and December was the World Cup, so we didn't really have many games taking place on Saturdays then, so they wouldn't give us a true reflection of the point that I'm trying to prove or the thesis that I'm trying to explore. And I didn't go back further than that because, like I say, I'm always analysing my results and making tweaks and changes to the way I do things. And so the strategies, my approach to betting, like pre-November 2022 is very different to what it is now in 2023. So analysing my performance from Saturdays like 9 or 10 months ago isn't really going to reflect where I am today, because I've changed the way I do things so much. So the last 6 months was good because it was a really good sample size of data to work from. I mean, you can see we've got tons of bets in here, you know, dating back to the beginning of the year. This is January 1st here, January 6th or 7th, sorry. And so we've basically got 24 Saturdays since the beginning of 2023 to dig up data on. So what I basically did was go through every single Saturday since the beginning of the year and calculated profit and loss, and found some pretty amazing things. So the overall profit on just football bets placed on a Saturday was 16.34 units, which may not sound like a lot, but it's pretty good, to be fair, for a few reasons that, you know, I'll go into in this video. First of all, you know, the ROI, pretty impressive. We just calculate the ROI, 37 plus 35 equals 92. And then if we just ask Google, what percent is, what was the number? Sorry, I should have worked this out before. 16.34 of 92. So even though the number 16.34 isn't huge, the ROI is absolutely killer. Like, it rounds up to 18%. Like, that's mega. Like, if you understand what a good return is in sports betting, this is basically unheard of. Like, a return of 18% on a sports betting market is efficient as football. Like, that is absolute sick. That's godlike. That's a godlike ROI. I don't want to blow my own trumpet. That's pretty fucking good. But it's even better than that for reasons that I'll go into now. But we want to take things slow, right? So the devil is always in the detail, and I really want to drill into these results for you from our performance on Saturdays, so that you can start to understand why these numbers are actually a lot more exciting than even what they appear here. So first thing I want to draw your attention to is our performance over the last 2 months. So as you can see, we haven't lost a single bet on football in the last 2 months. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 3-0, 1-0, 3-0. And then before that, you can see completely different story. We mix it up a lot more. Look, you know, wins and losses, wins and losses, wins and losses, wins and losses. So here you can see a clear shift in strategy in May and June compared to previous months. And this is another reason why I said earlier on in the video, I don't want to go, you know, all the way back to my performance, you know, pre-November 2022. It's changed so much since then. It's a really good example of that. So there's a notable difference in results in May and June compared to earlier in the year. And this is no coincidence. I basically made a change in early May where I was starting to notice on days like this, April 15th, where I went 5-0, that there was a certain style of betting that I could use on a Saturday, which more often than not would yield very good profits. And I started to suspect there was a thing back in March where we were going like 2-1, 3-1, and I started to think, you know, rather than mixing things up a lot and going 4-3 for a small profit or 3-2 for a small profit, what would happen if, like, instead of placing 5 or 6 or 7 bets in a day, I tightened up a lot, waited for that ultra strong position to come along and only bet that. So instead of betting on, you know, the high risk big underdog in UFC because there's value there, you know, and over the long term hope that we'd make a profit because, you know, we were getting our money on big dog odds in a competitive fight, but we were gambling, we'd have to rely on him, you know, getting the job done or the judges scoring the fight in his favor. Rather than placing those kind of bets, I was like, what if I just only bet the stuff that I was ultra confident in would work. And at the start of May, I implemented that strategy, and you can see the end result is we haven't lost a bet for 7 weeks on Saturday, which is crazy, right? Because for those of you that are in my UFC live betting group, you'll know the power of compound interest, how quickly you can grow small amounts of money into very large amounts of money if you can string together consecutive winners. Now, unfortunately, in UFC live betting, the problem we have is as soon as you start to make a little bit of money, the betting sites shut you down. You know, last weekend was one of our biggest winning weeks. Well, it was our biggest winning week of the year last week in UFC live betting. And throughout the event in the Discord chat, I just saw people getting account after account after account getting shut down. The beauty of football is we can place bets on exchanges and brokerages with massive max bet limits, huge liquidity. So my goal is to try and get football to a place where the win rate is just as high as it is on UFC live betting. And that'll then enable us to bet football as big and as aggressively as we do the UFC and start to compound gains and start to make big profits, because with football we don't have to worry about account closures. And what's really cool is over the 18 months since I've been betting football seriously, now that we've got that big sample size, like I said earlier, I've identified certain types of bets in certain leagues which have a 70 to 80% win rate. And now on top of that, I've identified that one day a week, which is Saturday, we have an enormous edge betting football. So now we've got 2 critical success factors which we know can take us to mega profits if we just make a few tweaks, and we eliminate all the kind of bets that lead to swings on days where we go 4-3 one week and then 2-5 next week, 4-2 one day, 1-6 the next week. We have these swingy days because we mix it up a lot on days like that. Let's strip back all the bets that we know are going to be a roller coaster, because we have different levels of confidence in different types of bets, and let's double down and only bet on the stuff that we know has a really high win rate, or place bets on Saturday when we have a huge sample size to cherry pick ultra strong positions from. So in terms of actual numbers, what is the impact of what is the potential of what we've already been able to do in 2023 on Saturdays without even trying? Like, I only consciously made a shift to Saturday betting strategies in May. The previous 4 months were profitable as well, but what is the impact of this level of performance, for our future? Well, first of all, let's talk about how we could use compound interest with football. So there's been 24 Saturdays in 2023, and out of the 24 Saturdays, we made a profit on 18 of them, and we made a loss on 6. So if we were calculating a win rate based on days, that would be a win rate of 75%. Now this is very interesting, because you can see that our win rate on actual bets is a lot lower. It's 62%. We went 57-35 for an overall profit of 16.34. Now, you can't really use compound interest with a win rate of 62%, because while you do have an edge that produces a good profit, we've seen that an ROI of 18% is nuts. While you can't use compound interest that effectively with a win rate of 62%, because it means you're still losing 40% of your bets, which slows down compound interest growth a lot if you're having a period of consecutive losers. What a daily win rate of 75% means is you can use compound interest in a different way. The way that compound interest would currently work, and the way that a lot of people use it in UFC live betting, is that you scale unit sizes up and down with every winning and losing bet. And we can do that because on UFC live betting, we have a very high win rate. That strategy won't work with a win rate of only 62%. But with a daily win rate of 75%, you can use level stakes compound interest. What I mean by that is, instead of adjusting your unit size up and down after each individual... Oh, I've gone blurry again. Instead of adjusting your unit size up and down with each winning or losing bet, instead what you would do is adjust your unit size up and down after each Saturday. And so you can see here you have 4 consecutive winning Saturdays here. After every Saturday, you know, or at the beginning of every Saturday, you would decide your unit size. After close of play on Saturday, if you made a profit, you would then level up your unit size, and that's your increased unit size going into the following Saturday. You would then do the same thing after that Saturday. You know, you look at where you are. If you've made a profit again, increase your unit size for the next Saturday. So you don't do it after each bet, you do it after every Saturday. And that'll enable you to use compound interest, because you can compound gains there, look, for 4 weeks. Then we basically break even, so that wouldn't have any impact on the compounding effect. Then you make a profit for another 2 weeks. And so you have almost, you know, you have 6 weeks basically of compounded growth there. Then you have a couple of weeks losses, which are going to slow things down a bit. But then 2 weeks of profit, and then another little setback. But then after that, you could see we only have 1 losing week in the last 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks. And obviously, you know, the rate of compounding here is going to be absolutely massive. You're going to really start to snowball and accelerate profits. And so what I'm very, very interested in with football now is the potential that Saturdays have to start making huge profits. Because by accident, actually, by complete accident, I think I've uncovered a football betting strategy that can produce profits we can never even dream of on UFC live betting. Because I've developed all these winning strategies on football. And if every Saturday I just sat down, super dialed in, like I do with a UFC event, where I start, you know, Saturday morning for the Asian games in China, Korea, Japan. I'm super focused. I've had a good night's sleep. I've eaten good. You know, I'm really focused on the games. I've done my research. I'm good to go. And I do that all the way through the European games in the afternoon, into the South American games into the night. If I do that every Saturday, I know out of those hundreds of games that take place, I'm going to find at least 2, 3, or 4 of those ultra strong bets that I know I have proven strategies and data and big sample sizes to show me those bets will win at a really high percentage. And the last 2 months, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? So I'm hoping that you could kind of see the potential here. But again, the devil is in the detail. And even though an ROI of 18% is godlike, it's ridiculous, I know I can do even better than this. And let me explain to you why. I know I can improve this so much. I know I can get this up. And I know I can improve the ROI as well. I'm only just getting started. The reason being, if you look at our total profit since the beginning of the year, 16.34 units. What you'll notice if you go through our 6 losing days is that all of them are relatively small apart from one. So we went minus 0.49 there, minus 1, minus 1.49, minus 0.1. Then you have this nasty one here, 3.24. But then you have a really nasty one of 5.20. What is really significant about this day here is that we placed 7 bets and we got wrecked. if we scroll forward to May and June, you'll see that we didn't even get anywhere near placing 7 bets. And so even though we took a 5.2 unit beating on the first January of the year, it's very unlikely we're going to get days like this if we're only betting ultra strong bets, right? It's very unlikely, because you're not going to find 7 ultra strong bets in a day, right? They're very rare. And so, worst case scenario, we probably go 0-3, 1-2 to basically cut this loss in half. Worst case scenario, which is kind of essentially, well, no, it's not a good example because there's still 7 bets there. But the point I'm trying to make is the reason why you get bigger losing days like this and bigger losing days like this is because I'm mixing things up more, and I'm placing the kind of bets that don't have as high a win rate, right? 7 bets, 7 bets. When we strip everything back and we only bet the super strong shit, I mean, we just don't lose. Like, we haven't had a losing bet in almost 2 months. It's actually crazy. It's actually crazy. And so I know for a fact that I can improve this a lot, because we'll be eliminating a lot of the type of bets which have a lower win rate and they're fraught with risk. So naturally win rate is going to go up as we eliminate a lot of the kind of bets that are costing us money. We've seen that here with the pre-fighting bets, where our win rate went from being terrible to very, very good. I mean, look at our hit rate here. Here we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3. Here we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 2. Right? You can see the impact that making these adjustments have made the win rate. We're not an 80% win rate here on these 10 bets. We're nowhere near an 80% win rate across this year. So I know I can improve that for sure. I know I can improve this and this. And maybe even this and this too. I mean, we're still going to have losing days, obviously. Obviously, we're still going to have losing days. But I think losing days like this and like this can be a thing of the past, because we're not going to be mixing it up as much as we used to. Another reason why I think that I can improve this performance is because I am not in an optimal state of mind when I bet on Saturdays on football. I'm quite often very run down, feeling like a zombie. I've been eating junk food, drinking energy drinks to fuel me. Saturdays are very, very difficult because, in Europe, we, unfortunately are in a situation where UFC events often don't start until 10 p.m, 11 p.m, midnight over here, and they run through till 5, 6 a.m. in the morning. So towards the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I have to switch my sleep cycle to be able to stay up all night and live bet the UFC. What this means is Saturday, I'm usually feeling like a jet-lagged zombie. I'm run down, my body's aching. I've been having to drink energy drinks to stay up while I complete the time zone shift. I'm eating shitty food. I'm stressed out because the UFC is really busy. On Saturdays, I quite often still have breakdown videos to record, or bets to post, or customer service issues to sort out on the website. So I'm very distracted on Saturdays. It's a very, very difficult betting environment, for me, Saturdays. And to be honest with you, it's probably the reason why I've gone 1-6 here and 2-5 here, right? I can't remember specifically what happened on those Saturdays, but if I had to guess, if I could rewind the clock and I could go back, and look at my circumstances back on those days, I bet I was stressed out. I bet I was, rushing. I bet I was tired. I bet I was under pressure to get UFC related stuff done, so that I wasn't in an optimal mind state to bet effectively. And that's probably a big contributing factor to big losing days like this. And that creates opportunity for even further improvement, where, if I can get to a point where I don't have to bet UFC anymore, because betting football replaces the money I earn from betting UFC, if we could get it to a place where I don't have to switch my sleep cycle to live bet the UFC, and I get lots of rest throughout the week, good sleep, good diet, and I can wake up feeling fresh, energized, in a great mental state, good to go Saturday morning. I wake up 8 a.m. Saturday morning European time, live bet the Korean, the Chinese, the Japanese football, and stay up all the way through to the South American football, till midnight that night. If I'm not feeling like a tired, jet-lagged, run-down zombie, I think we can produce incredible results on Saturdays. Like, I have achieved these results while trying to juggle a really unhealthy lifestyle towards the end of the week, where I have to switch sleep cycle, and also have all the pressure of managing the website, the breakdown videos, the live betting UFC. I've managed to achieve this in a really difficult environment where I'm not in an optimal mind state. So imagine what I could achieve if I was in an optimal mind state. I mean, I might be able to double this. So I just wanted to share all that stuff with you, because, I mean, it's complicated, but I just kind of want you to see. I just kind of want you to see what the potential is, and completely under the radar that we've actually achieved something pretty incredible. So anyway, the final thing I want to end on is what changes I might actually going to implement based on these findings. And so it's quite clear, I think, at this point that our edge betting on Saturdays is absolutely huge. I mean, not losing a bet in 2 months when you can see how much we've mixed it up in previous months. I mean, this is no coincidence. This new approach to betting Saturdays works, right? So what I'm now going to do is kind of cut the week in half, where I'm going to treat all the football matches that take place Monday to Friday like one group of matches, like just one big Saturday. And I'm going to try and clear the UFC schedule as much as I can, be as fresh as I can going into each Saturday. You'll look after my body, my mind, so I can go in with a clear head Saturday morning and be really dialed in and look to crush Saturdays. So that's where we know we've got a big edge. Outside of that, what I'm going to try and do throughout the week is be as selective with my bets throughout the week as I am on Saturdays. So if we have, hundreds of games, say 200-300 games to live bet on a Saturday, and we know that we can produce this betting Saturdays, then if we have, say, 200-300 games to bet between Monday and Friday, rather than trying to, find a decent bet or two every day of the week, I'm going to try and look at Monday to Friday as just one giant day. And instead of trying to find 1, 2, 3 bets a day, try and find maybe 1, 2, 3 bets a week. And you've probably noticed that I have tightened up a lot when it comes to midweek bets, and this is a big part of it, because what I've found we've been doing is, throughout the week we've been maybe making a small profit Monday to Friday, or a small loss or break even, and then making a profit most Saturdays. So, quite often what happens is we'll be making a small loss throughout the week, and then when Saturday comes, we've got to make that loss back to get back to break even, and then get in the profit. Whereas if we can just avoid that and either, break even or be in small profit throughout the week, then all the money we make on Saturdays is ours, right? And it may get to the point where in the future I may just stop betting midweek altogether. But, I don't want to jump in too soon. It's still early days. We'll see how it goes, because you still get a lot of amazing betting opportunities midweek. It would be foolish to stop. You still get Champions League, Europa League, and all the top European leagues running throughout the week. We just need to be a lot more selective, I think, with the types of bets we go for. So I hope you found that useful. Yeah, man. I'm hoping you found that useful, and if you've got any questions, don't forget to drop it in the football Discord. And yeah, I think the future's really bright, man. I'm very excited about the future. This has been a big breakthrough, big finding, and like they say, the numbers don't lie. So I'm actually so excited for the future. It scares me, because if we can keep this up, then man, it'll be life-changing for a lot of people. So thank you for watching. Love you all. Take care. And yo, let's kick the shit out of July, right? July, this almost the end of June. Let's go. Let's try and make a profit in July. July is going to be better than June. We've got Europa League, Champions League qualifiers starting in a couple of weeks, under 19 Euros, under 21 Euro knockout games, and some European leagues also start to come back this month, as well as some leagues that are an absolute money train for us, like the Mexican Premier League. So I'm optimistic. We'll do better in July than we did in June. June was the toughest month of the year for betting, with it being the off-season. July is also tough, still the off-season, but it does get a little bit better. So thank you very much for watching. Nice one, guys. Take care. See you all.